Let's talk about that scenario that we had where an instrumentalist, a keyboard player, a bass player, a guitar player comes and says, I've plugged my instrument in with my instrument cable. Here's my other end that I have to give to you. What do we do? Well, we've learned that a DI box solution really meets the need of what we really want. So let's talk a little bit about that. Again, we've talked about low-end DIs and some high-end DIs. Get what you can, but I always encourage you, a high-end DI will serve you great and well. Let's look at this system right here. I'm going to be using the Radio Pro DI. It has quarter-inch inputs, if you will. Well, one of them is an input and one of them is an output. So in our scenario, our bass player we're going to use today connects his bass. We plug the other end of that cable into the input quarter-inch jack, okay? And then we're going to connect our XLR cable. The female end goes here. And then we plug this end into our snake connections. So that simply means that their instrument is going directly into our board. That doesn't work for every musician. In fact, some musicians have pedal boards, which you can do that, but some like to use their own amplifier. And let's talk about how we can set that up in two different ways. Actually, there's three different ways. Let's look at a very simple way that I like to use quite often, and that is this. First, we're going to have our instrumentalists connect their instrument to here. This is connected. We go the input of our DI box, the output going into our snake. There's an extra cable that's here, but with an extra balance line, if you will, we can, or an instrument line, as long as it's quarter-inch, we're going to go through and then plug this end into their amplifier. Now what that's going to do, it's going to give us a signal straight from their instrument or their pedal board that goes directly into our mixer. But then that signal, it literally is going to come in, go out this way, but if you will, a copy of it is going to go through here, and then they can plug it into their amplifier. And that gives us two options. Number one, we get a nice clean signal of their instrument to the back that we can control, and through this cable, they can also have a signal going directly to their amplifier that they can control. Now, the only issue there is you must make sure that they are not cranking their amplifier too much, because if they're cranking it so loud, it kind of reduces the point of having them go through the main mix. But sometimes you may want that. But again, for you as a mix engineer in the back, depending on what you're doing, you want to have some degree of control of their system. But let's talk about what some cabinets and some heads have. I want to show you this bass head. This one is by Crate, and we have this in our chapel. This is our bass. And this Crate one, if we look at the system right here, let's review that. We have our bass player is coming from their instrument right here. So this goes into their instrument. We have gone through our DI box right here. We are going through our mixer through here, through our snake. And then now we're going to make sure we have a through. What we would do is we would go directly into the input section, and they basically have a clean copy of that bass signal, whatever's coming out of their bass. So many guitar heads and even bass heads have that option where, again, we can just simply go using a DI box going directly through the through output. But let me show you something that this one simply has, which is something you may want to consider, especially if you don't have enough DI box. Let me show you the back. Let me turn this around. Some heads and some guitar amps will have a dedicated line output. Basically, they've built sort of a DI into their system, and they're allowing you to send an unamplified signal to your mixer. So in this scenario that we have here on this one, the line out actually is balanced line out, and it is an XLR cable. So in this scenario, we wouldn't need a DI box. We would simply connect to the back of our head and then connect this end to our snake, and we're good to go. That solution allows this bass player Again, this head is connected to a speaker cabinet. They can control the volume, and you also have a signal going to your mixer. However, you would have to negotiate, if you will, with your bass player what kind of signals coming out there. Again, this head happens to have some options. It has some EQ and some compression and a lot of things. But again, if you're setting up a player, a bass player, a guitar player, and they have a head for their cabinet or a combo speaker situation, you can try the DI box. But if their cabinet or speaker has a line-out option, you can also try that. The third way, which I'm going to mention, which we might not use too much, is simply to let the guitar player have their instrument, have it connected to their amp and their pedal board, whatever they like, and simply put a microphone in front of their cabinet, which will allow them to monitor their sound, but through that microphone, you can use it to send to the house and your recording system. So those are 3 ways to connect your instrument to the mixing board.